guys, it's AxiomaticUncertainty here, and today I'm going to be back with another of a car tutorial series video. So this is going to be the 4th tutorial, and this is going to be a really brief one, since it's a bit late at night and I don't really feel like staying up in order to record another of these and then upload it and whatnot. So, we're back on our car page, and I just want to do a few things. So first off, if I remember correctly, we were having a lot of issues with flipping of the vehicle, right? And I'm not going to demonstrate all of that necessarily, but you can see it's tilting quite a bit. And if I suddenly change directions, I can generate just enough torque that I start to really lose control, right? To the point of, nearly flipping the car, and eventually, as you can see there, just flipping it. So I don't really appreciate that. It's not exactly the greatest thing to have. Sorry about the noise in the background. That is the dog. Anyhow, we're going to be on 3,500, I guess, maybe even 4,000, just so that we're not getting so much of that turning, right? So we can get, fairly reasonable acceleration, right, for a standard car, without the crazy turning issues. And obviously more will be done later in order to fix that. There are a lot of things that we can change, but, at the moment, this is just the best thing that we have for this. So there you go. So today's video is going to be on the headlights, not on the taillights, just on the headlights, since the taillights will tie into our braking system. And for that, we're going to do some interesting stuff here. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're just going to add a new game object, and we are going to make sure that this is at the center for the car, and we're going to call this our, let's just call it the head, or the lighting, right? And our lighting manager here is just going to just put it here and add some object. It's just going to sit right here, right? We're going to add some lights under here, and since this is a car, right, and we're running this game as a car would usually be, we're trying to make this pretty realistic. We're going to add spotlights. Of all the types of lights, these are the best for simulating vehicles, in that we can actually get these to shine directly from the source at specific angles. And so we're just going to position this nice and close here to the headlight itself, right? And I sort of like that, right? But let's just move it over a bit, get it into a better position there, right? And also move back a little bit, just for a better view there, and that looks okay, right? And now we're just gonna move it a tiny bit forward, and I like that, so we can then just keep that. And now, just in order to test this stuff out, what we're gonna do is we're gonna just come into our directional light for the scene, and we're going to bring this intensity to 0, just that we have a very dark world. And actually I'm not really sure why it's still so bright, but what we can do is we can just make this more like 0.1 or something, and you can see that our plane gets a bit darker. And then we have this, I think it's because of this awkward skybox of ours. So what we're going to do is just, I guess we'll just leave it right now. But in the future, actually here, let's just do it right now. Let's just, let's just remove this for a little bit, right? Make that a bit darker and save it. And now you can see our actual game looks a little bit darker, a little bit more dramatic, and we should be able to see better now when we run this, that things are looking how they should. So now what we're going to do is we're going to change a few things. So we're going to drop the car down, right, just so that it's closer to the surface, so we can test out these spotlights. And you can see now that we're generating a little bit of light here. And if I go back into my lighting manager and I go into my spotlight, I can just sort of increase this range, right? Let's make it like 20 or maybe even 30. Actually, let's just go with 40, right? And that actually looks pretty decent. I sort of like that. And now what I want to do is maybe increase the spot angle a fair bit, right? And let's just tilt this thing down, right? That way we get more like a direct kind of thing here, sort of like in a real car, you know, your headlights are gonna hit relatively close to the ground in front of your vehicle, right? Sort of like that. And when you're on the road, it's gonna look about like that. It's gonna shine onto everything in front of you, and just cast a good amount of light on there. And we're just gonna make this intensity a bit better. And the other thing is, with a vehicle, the headlights don't tend to be perfect white, so I'm gonna make these a little bit yellow, right? Just a bit, like that, sort of. And, you know, now you can see this is pretty realistic looking, right? This is sort of how a car looks at night. And the only thing I really want to change is I want to make this a little bit outward, right? Just a tad bit. Let's make this even. -3 sounds -4. Yeah, let's go with -5. That looks okay. You know, looks about right. And I like that. So that is perfectly fine. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna copy it. We can just do Control D actually and duplicate it. And now we can just bring this y back to 0, right? And I'll get to this in a second. But anyhow, we can just take the negative out of here, right? And bring it over to the other side. And then we can just actually make this the opposite, right? Just like on the other one. You can see if we have the original -5, we end up with that kind of thing. But here we end up with a pretty dynamic looking little array of lights. And you can see in our game preview that it looks pretty good. And now we can save this and just sort of run this whole thing. And you can see that our lights look decent enough, right? And if I turn the vehicle, they do cast directly in front of the car. They look nice. They look pretty good, especially from the front. And they're helping to illuminate our pathway, right? And if I back up the car really quickly, you can see that they don't look too shabby. Not too shabby at all, right? And you can see we're getting this weird bugging at the edge, but we can fix that later, right? So there you have it. That is the basic part of this, right? And now what we're going to do is we're just going to say, you know, that, okay, first off, that this is going to be HL for, or LH for left headlight, right? And then this is going to be RH for right headlight. And I just prefer very simple names for things because, you know, usually I know what I'm referencing here, and most of my references are drag and drop anyhow, and we'll get to that again in a minute. So here what we're going to do now is we're going to stub a new script, and we're going to call this our lighting manager, right? And this is just going to handle our car's tail lights and its headlights. And we can now open this up here, and okay, so you see we've gotten this error, and mono behavior is not highlighted. Now what I like to do here is just close Visual Studio, open it again, and that reloads it really quickly. We don't have to go through any hassle of, you know, manually refreshing things, and now it's loaded this in properly. So we can just backspace there, remove that extra line, and get started on the code. So the lighting manager is not going to need either of these two things, right? Our lighting manager is going to be triggered from our card controller class, hence this thing being the core controller for this whole system. And so, you know, we're just going to add some methods here, but apart from those core methods, we do need a public list, right? And this is going to contain light objects, and we're going to call this list, yeah, sure, lights will work. And we can just say that it is going to be like, you know, just empty initially, right? So that actually, if we just go into our code now, or into our game now, we can drag this onto our vehicle, check it out, and go into our lights list and just add 2 lights, and then we're gonna drag and drop our lights into here, and we now have references, right? And we built all those in. So there is that. And if I remember correctly, our car is getting, yeah, so we're getting our inputs from our input manager, right? So what we're going to do here in our lighting manager is we're going to add some void methods. Actually, we're just going to call these public void, right? Actually, sorry, public static void methods. And this one's going to be handle head light. Actually, yeah, let's just go with handle headlights for now. And our handle headlights method is just going to handle the front lights of the vehicle, you know. And now what we're going to do in here is we're going to add a new required component, and this one's going to be for our, and I'm sorry about the volume change, you know, I live in a family home, and so I don't want to wake anybody, but this is going to be, a lighting manager, so we're going to need an instance of this class attached to the object, right? And now we can add a new little thing down here, and we can make this our public lighting manager, LM, right? So now that we have that, we can just come into our main script and redo that process of dragging and dropping. So in this actual car controller script, we can drag in a lighting manager in the form of the attached lighting manager, and that will now suffice. So we can go back into our script, right? And we're trying not to make this too cluttered, but again, we're gonna have to keep, you know, adding stuff to this. So our lighting manager is visual, so I don't actually want this in our fixed update. That's, you know, physics, and I think that it should remain reserved because obviously in the future we're going to make more changes to that, and I don't want our physics to become you know, bogged down by all these unnecessary computations. You know, lighting does not need to be done every, you know, so often, you know, at a greater frequency than, you know, even like important processes that should really be taking precedence, or, you know, at the same level as physics, because physics obviously runs multiple times per frame. We don't want that here. So for the sake of making this thing run a little bit better, we're going to put it in here, and what we're going to say is we're going to get our reference to our lighting manager, and we're going to say dot handle. Oops, I feel like that's weird. I can't get a reference to that. Did I add? Yeah, I did. So why can't we access that? And I'm just gonna, let me try something. I don't know why I'm having an issue here. Whoops. There we go. Okay, so it's virtual. I'm sorry about that. I don't know why I wrote static there. Anyhow, we want it to be accessible from this class, and so we're going to make our instance, you know, virtual, and now we can move on to actually writing the script. So in our headlights, our handle headlights method is going to need something else, and what it's going to be is just some input, right? And I think we're going to make that of the form, let's just say bool, right? And this can be done just as a boolean, and it's going to contain, let's just call this, actually no, I'm sorry, yeah, bool L, right? And actually, here's what I want to do. I'm just going to change this. I'm sorry, I didn't plan this, but I think that this is more efficient. So we're just going to say, we're going to add a new method. We're going to call this toggle headlights, right? And all this is going to do is going to turn on and off our headlights. And we don't want this in the other script because we don't want it to become cluttered and disorganized. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to take our toggle headlights, right, which has just this bit here, and we're going to first off update it here. So toggle headlights, and then we're going to put this in an if statement. This if statement is going to be activated on the condition of our being able to make sure that our input manager, which let me just open this class just to check out its functionality, is getting some specific values. So in our input manager, we're going to add a new input. We're going to call this our public bool, and this is just going to be what, let's just call this our, actually, yeah, we're going to call this L, right? And what we can do here is we can say, you know, L equals input dot get key down key code dot L, and L is just going to be L for lights, right? And that's going to be our key to toggle the lights. And so now what this does is get key down will only trigger when the key is pressed, so on the frame that the key is pressed, and then every subsequent frame during which the key is still, you know, held down will not trigger this event, because we don't want the lights just flickering constantly, because, you know, people can't remove their hand from the key that quickly. So there is that. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add in this, we're going to make this IM call. We're going to say L, right? And I believe that's what I called it. Oops, let's go back into the input manager. That is what I called it. So in our car controller, we can now say if im.l, lm.toggle headlights, and now we need to add some code to our toggle headlights. So in order to prove that this is working, let's just try a quick debug. Just get in the habit of making sure that our code is working, and we're just going to call this test. I'm sorry that I don't make my debugs something super cool or anything, but let's see what the problem is here. Oh my gosh, we caused a bunch of issues. Let's see, what did I forget? Void fixed update. Why can this not be? I mean, that's not really gonna fix it. Okay, apparently it did fix it. I don't know why that is. Let's try running it again, just seeing what the issues are here. Right, so we're getting a ton of stuff with this fixed update. I'm not really sure. I think it's because we can't have these two running in the same scope. So we could just merge it in, but I think I'll just put this whole thing inside of our fixed update. And in the future, oh, never mind. Okay, I'm sorry. I am delusional. I had forgotten a bracket for the update method, so I think I was correct in my methodology. There we go. So that is fine. And now if I hit L, you can see that it's running that test debug. And so now we can go back into our lighting manager and just delete this and write our actual code, and that's going to be a for each, right, as usual. And we're just gonna put a space in here because why not? Actually, no, I'll just leave this out because I don't really, no, space. I'm sorry, I'm really particular about this. We're gonna call this for each light in lights, right? So we're gonna, you know, iterate through this whole list, and we're gonna do then is use a simple ternary operator. As you know, I like to use those in order to simplify a lot of my statements, and you should use them whenever an if statement is not necessary also. So here we can just integrate that into our code by saying light equals, right, or light.intensity, sorry. So the value here is going to be intensity, since that's going to allow us to change the degree to which light is shining, right? And for us, it's going to be on or off for now, at least. And so we're going to say light.intensity equals, and then light.intensity equals, so double equals sign in order to evaluate something. And then we're going to say 2, right? And if it is equal to 2, we're actually, let's just make this 0, right? And if it is equal to 0, right, we want to make this 2 because that is our default light intensity for when it's on. And if it's equal to 2, we want to make it 0. So basically, if this evaluates to true, we're going to change it to 2 by toggling it. If this is false, we're going to change it to 0, thus toggling it. And that is it. I think that should work, and if it does, we're sorted, and I'll be able to end this tutorial for you guys. So you can see we can hit L, and it is working perfectly. And you can see now all of our scripts are nicely integrated, and they're very modular and extendable, and now we can use all these classes within different vehicle types and whatnot, and everything is completely flexible, and this is easily transferable between vehicles, so that is very good. Again, I'm just trying to teach, proper methods for programming, instead of writing sloppy code like I used to. I'm trying to help you guys better understand how important it is to make sure that everything is, usable, and comprehensible. In that, somebody else needs to be able to understand this, especially if you're doing this within a professional context, so I just thought that was an important aspect of building a car. Obviously it is, and I will leave you with that. This has been the 4th tutorial in the Unity car series. I hope you've enjoyed it. Next tutorial, I'm not sure what we're going to cover, maybe smooth cameras and braking, but obviously those are some big concepts combined, so I'm not really sure. Maybe engine sounds, maybe a combination of things, we'll see. But I hope you've enjoyed this, the 4th tutorial in the series. Again, if you've enjoyed it, if you've been liking the series thus far, please remember to like, subscribe, share, and comment if you have any suggestions for future videos, feedback on this video, if you want to, compliment the video, critique it, criticize it, anything. Just give me your thoughts in the comment section, and remember just to do all that. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in tutorial number 5.